Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Dadas Show, coming to you from Best Western Hotel, Upper Hill here in Nairobi. I'm your host, Ashiko Mbune. The Dadas Show aspires to promote the spirit of sisterhood and solidarity amongst Kenyan women. And we do this by creating an open and safe platform for women to be able to discuss issues pertaining to their health, their lifestyle, their careers, their families, etc. Now, the recent and unfortunate happenings at Shakahola in Kilifi have brought one very important question to the forefront. What do we actually regard as faith in God? It is said that faith is the language of the heart, which is something that most of us women can resonate with. This, of course, makes us very susceptible to conmen and pseudo-religions. The Shakahola unfortunate incident is the straw that broke the camel's back. However, since time immemorial, female church members have been duped into selling off their assets, into sexual favors, and into very many unchristian-like practices, all in the name of spiritual growth. Today, we shall be taking an in-depth look at the manipulative practices that some of these pseudo-religions carry and what the state machinery needs to do to protect its people. As always, we welcome you at home to take part in this and any other conversation that we may have. Contact us on all our social media pages at KBC Channel 1. And of course, reach me directly on my personal page at Ashiko, the host across all social media platforms. Before we jump into this very contentious topic, let's take a look at the following feature.
Interior Cabinet Secretary Professor Kithure Kindiki is promising decisive action against those who have failed to act and abetted the Shakahola deaths. Kindiki is specifically trading his guns on judicial officers, prosecutors and police officers from Malindi for turning a blind eye, leading to the many deaths. Appearing before a Senate ad hoc committee for the third time in the past week, Cabinet Secretary revealed that some police officers in Malindi who have since been transferred after the massacre failed to act on various formal reports filed against cult leader Paul Mackenzie.
Not the entire service, but some officers will have a case to answer, and other organs of security. I believe even the judiciary, some officials will have a case to answer. There are many things that the police should have done differently. There are many things that the NIS should have done differently. There are many things that the ODPP should have done differently, and there are many things that the judiciary should have done differently. So I hope you'll talk to the judiciary, because we have issues there.
The ongoing investigation on the Shakahola massacre has drawn attention countrywide on how pastors and men of clergy have managed to prey on innocent followers. For a long time, women have easily been targeted, duped, and even taken advantage of in cults.
A cult will first of all present, it will bombard you with love. The introduction of a cult is love. It shows you are loved, you are cared for in a big way. So, women are more vulnerable to love more than men are. Because even we say in counseling, men are to be respected, not necessarily to be loved. Women are to be loved. Even if you tell a man, I love you, but you don't respect a man, he still doubts your love. You tell a woman, I love you, and if the nerves start relaxing in her body, you tell her, I love you again, the heart relaxes. I love you again, I love you again. Before you know it, a box. like the young men will say in them tongue. So a cult will bombard women first with love. And because women are more culpable when it comes to matters of love, they're more culpable. So a cult will come with love. So the moment it shows the woman she is loved, she is cared for, easily the woman will start emptying herself. And most likely, the cult will help her to identify a victim. And 90% of women will identify their husbands as the first victim because no husband provides enough. The second reason as to why they get women more, it's because women are not afraid. Majority of women are not afraid of expenditure.
We met with Reverend Dr. Edward Karanja, marriage and family therapist, who shared his thoughts on cultism and women.
My name is Edward Karanja. I am a pastor with the Presbyterian Church of East Africa. I'm also a marriage and family therapist. A cult is a faith that does not very much prescribe to the norm or to what we are used. And the characteristic of a cult is that one, the cult tries to first cut you off from your strong links. Because a cult looks into identifying a victim. And once it deals with that victim, it puts away, then gets another victim. I know I'm also discussing this from a psychological point of view. For example, a cult will ensure if the first victim is your denomination, whatever denomination is, it will demonize the denomination. That's the victim, it cuts it off. Then it will get probably to the next victim might be your father, your mother, your husband, your wife, or whoever. It demonizes that and cuts off. A cult leader will ensure, cut me off from my wife, cut me off from my children, cut me off from even the friends that I have, so that when I am left alone and the cult leader is interested in my finances, they are able to take it away without anyone questioning them, because they have first of all cut off every of my support system.
As one is looking for a church to fellowship, here are some of the key things to look out for in order to avoid finding yourself in a cult.
It is good to always ask yourself, does the church have structure, the church you are going to? Is the church a one-man, one-woman show? Does everything end and stop at an individual? Because if a church you're going to, it's all by itself is about an individual. He is an accountant, he is the owner of the church, he or she is, as in it's a one-person stop shop. Then be very worried. Because too much power bestowed on an individual, the individual is bound to be corrupted by power. It is also good to look into the existence. Sometimes you look into how long has this particular institution been existing around here? And the second thing is it a Bible-based church? Is everything based on the Bible or based on an individual? And that's what I keep telling Christians. Every time you wake up in the morning and the first thing you say, my pastor said, my pastor said, my pastor said, my pastor did. Be very worried, scared. Because is it what the Bible said? Is it what God is saying, or what an individual is saying? The other thing is the lifestyle. You see, the lifestyle of your spiritual leader is very important. If what one is preaching is not what they are living, then that's a problem. Because a genuine faith will be concerned with the life of the people around them. Is the man or woman of God humble as God himself is, or so proud? That's what we keep saying. If the way I am walking around, people even clear the way for me to pass. Really? Why are they clearing? Why do I need bodyguards as a man of God? What am I afraid of? Is the man of God extremely proud? Even their lifestyle, the way they are walking, the way they are living. Or are they ordinary men and women that you can identify with, you can shake their hands, you can walk around with them? Even in a denomination or in a religion. And even getting an appointment to see your pastor is an uphill task. Then why do you need to be that? Because you need to see your shepherd. If you need your shepherd, within a week, unless they have traveled out of the country or something has happened, you should be able to see your shepherd.
Kenya is a religious country, and there have been previous cases of people being lured into dangerous and regulated churches. The country is no stranger to larger-than-life pastors preaching fire and brimstone sermons and predicting the end of the world. According to the government, there are more than 4,000 churches registered in the East African countries of around 50 million people. With the rising number of men of God, the question of the government regulating churches has been received with a lot of opposition.
The government has the jurisdiction because everybody under a certain nation operates under the rules and regulations of the particular country. That's why there is a constitution that governs a country called Kenya. So the government, the first question was, can the government do something? Yes, it can do something. The moment people die because of wrong teachings, the buck stops with the government. Why would anyone be afraid of regulation? If what I am doing as a pastor, as a church, is what is in the Bible, what is this that I am afraid of the government knowing? Why would I be afraid of opening up my bank accounts our church accounts for the scrutiny by the government, if indeed I am a child of light, I preach the light, I walk in the light. Again, the Bible says in 1 Corinthians 14:14, everything, and I love this verse, everything must be done decently and in order. So if I am a pastor, why would I not love decency? Why would I not love order? Should I pay taxes? Yes, I should pay taxes because I'm in a country where I use a road. Who do I expect to make that road for me? There are schools. Who do I expect to make those? There are hostels. Who do I expect to do those hostels? That's why, and that's what I believe, a pastor should get a salary so that the salary is taxed just like any other Kenyan.
The rules are aimed at regulating religious bodies. They will affect all faith, including mainstream Christian, Hindu, and Islam institutions, and the numerous small groupings that have been accused of conning and brainwashing their followers or engaging in radicalization and other dangerous doctrines. Under the Bill of Rights, the Constitution of Kenya says that every person has the right to freedom of conscience, religion, thought, belief, and opinion, and every Kenyan has the right to manifest any religion or belief through worship, practice, teaching, or observance, including observance of a day of worship without restriction.
Welcome back. Joining me to discuss today's topic are three very exceptional women. And these are women who are going to walk us through their experiences and their expertise from their respective fields. Today's discussion is women and faith, especially in light of the Shakahola unfortunate incident and other incidences where women have found themselves on the receiving end of being duped by these religious fanatics. So to start us off, we have Melody. Melody will share with us her story of how she survived from the clutches of a cult. Karibu sana, Melody. Next to her, we have Reverend Lydia Kahiga, who is a reverend from Main Street PCA Church. We will also want to hear what the take is, especially from somebody from church. And finally, we have a representative from the Registrar of Societies. This, of course, is under the Attorney General's office. This is the body that is responsible for registering societies, churches, clubs, etc. So, karibu sana, Madam Zara Ahmed.
Thank you very much.
Of course, I cannot fail to acknowledge my wonderful audience who week in, week out take the time to sit with me as we discuss various contentious issues in a bid to find a lasting solution. Karibuni sana, my friends. And so to get the ball rolling, of course, we will start off with you, Melody. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you found yourself in the grasp of a cult.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ashiko. I'm so glad to be here in Dadas show. And I'm very glad to share my story. I hope it will be a help to very many outside there. So my name is Melody Waithera, my name is Melody Waithera Kihunyu, and I fellowship with Cry of the Spirit Ministries. And I'm actually one of the survivors of a Shakahola lookalike church, whereby I went through the entire indoctrination on fasting. Yes. Because I was a gullible Christian, and I was desperate at that time as a woman, and I was ready to believe anything that will give me the solutions that I wanted. Because what I wanted primarily that time was marriage, and I wanted prosperity. So once the church I was attending was not able to meet my needs, it was not able to, they were not moving in power. I had fellowship there for so many years and nothing was working. I felt it was a bit time to change and try something new, something that will give me what I want. Yes.
What were some of the characteristics that made you identify this particular church as like using your words, a Shakahola lookalike? What were some of the practices that maybe many people can be familiar with, so that it can be able to be discerning that this is actually a cult?
Yes. Okay. I'll first begin by saying that there is a fulfillment of prophecy in our end times. Where it has been written in the book of 2 Peter chapter 2, 1-3, that false prophets and false teachers have now come in and they're secretly bringing in destructive heresies to the church. So that was one of the identification, because the church was running as a money-making machine, because now what we have is money-making machine. We have synagogue of Satans. We have metaphysical cults called church. We have churches running as social clubs. We have churches running as political arenas. So finding a good church in our times is very difficult because we are actually in the prophetic times. And how I was able to identify it was an ex-Shakahola, it's because the template is the same. We had the man of God who is running like a demigod. So he stands in the church like God. He gives us instructions like God. He gives us instructions that are in the Bible like God. And we follow him like God. So we find ourselves following the pastor more than following what God is saying. So anything the pastor says, you're willing to believe it. And one thing the pastor mentioned was prosperity, and that anything about your life that is being delayed, there's actually an altar and enemies that are running behind it. And the enemies are in your household, which is written in the Bible. And the enemies are actually your family. So the first thing I did was isolating myself from my family members, because I knew everyone in my family is my enemy. They're actually the reason why I've come of age and I'm not yet married, or I'm also not prosperous. So the next thing was we need to fight the altars that are fighting against us. They are evil altars crying against us. So we have 30 ancestors from the 4th generation as you count down, because God said that the curse will fall on the 4th generation. So everyone in that line, who is the 30 ancestors, I'm carrying them in my bloodline. So because there is what they give for my life to be ruined right now, I also have to give. It's a battle of altar to altar, sacrifice for sacrifice.
So they expected you to sacrifice?
Yes, so I have to give an offering called an Isaac offering. Because once I give an Isaac offering, it's the one offering that will move God to bless me and actually beat the altars. So I actually went through the whole cycle. I did all the givings. So I was very determined to destroy the evil altars that are fighting my marriage, and to the extent of having to give an Isaac offering. An Isaac offering is you looking at something that is an Isaac to you, not just a normal offering. The way Abraham gave his all was Isaac. You look for a property to give, that's an Isaac. A car, something that is the only thing that you treasure. So that was the blueprint. And for me, I considered giving all the money I have was my Isaac offering. So I will get all my salary, take to the pastor. I will do projects. I will take every money to the pastor. There's a time I took to the pastor 20,000, and I found myself later borrowing my friend 20 shillings because I don't have bus fare to go back to town. There's also a time I took to the pastor 160,000. And again, I was calling my friend, a relative, to give me only 50 shillings to give me fare to go to town. And yet I don't know what I will eat on that day. I don't have food. And while all this is happening, I'm also extremely isolated from my family members. Like, I do not attend any functions. I don't go to any weddings. They don't see me at all, because in my mind, they are my enemies.
Yes.
And they're the hindrance, they're the obstacles to my progress.
Because this is what the pastor has said.
Yes, that is what the pastor has said. And the pastor that time has told us that our destinies are in his mouth. So he's the one who is controlling your destiny, controlling your life. Everything you have to do, he has to approve. Whether the Bible is right or wrong, you don't even have the time to keep on referring to the Bible. And one thing, Ashiko, I can say is, the moment I stepped into that church, I could see everything wrong. I could see everything wrong. But once I started participating in taking their Holy Communion and participating in their, using the anointing oil, all of a sudden I just became blind and I could no longer see the truth. So I'm actually an accountant by profession and an auditor. I know how money comes. But when I'm told that I place 20,000, I'll get to 200 million, I'll actually do that.
All logic went out of the window.
Yes, all logic and the intelligence, all of it came out of the window. So I kept doing that for a long time. And even in the members, we would visit them, you'll find their houses have nothing. People gave lands. So after some time is when I started questioning, like, I've given all my salary for almost 3 years. I have, my family members have died. The ones I considered enemies. Unfortunately, even my mother died. My mother died. But, so I was like, my enemies have died, my mother has died, because we were told, whoever has died in your family, don't cry, don't grieve, that was your enemy. That is why they have died. So I was wondering, our family members have died, we have given everything, and yet our circumstances are remaining the same. And now we are being told that fasting is the turnaround for the evil altars now. You've given all you can, now you're being told, fast. So we used to do something called Esther's fast. Esther's fast is where you stay 3 days without food, without water, the way Esther did in the Bible, so that there's a turnaround. So we fasted, actually went through a lot of fasting, rigorous fasting for almost the 3 years. I was very skinny, and even at some point I collapsed in the house. And when I went to the hospital, I was told my blood is 5 pints and it's supposed to be 12. And I was terribly sick. And my brother was telling me to eat, and I'm refusing to eat because I should be a spirit. Because the only way to fight these altars are spiritual. You also have to be a spirit. So when you eat, you enhance your flesh. So you have to reduce.
So you cannot combat the spirit.
Yeah, you cannot harness the enough energies and power, because this is a battle of altar to altar. So you cannot harness the energy that is needed or the power that is needed to fight this altar and even to fight your enemies. So we fasted, we did a lot of fasting. We fasted until now we were dying. And even at the point of death, I told myself I would rather die fighting the evil altars, fighting me, rather than stay alive. Because why would I stay alive suffering? And yet, you know, this is something that has been referred in the Bible. So anytime you're told fast yourself to be a spirit, you will fast yourself off. And one unfortunate thing was, there's a time I went to the pastor to explain to him, I don't understand why my circumstances, regardless of everything I've put on the table, nothing is changing.
Nothing is changing.
Yes, and by the time I was going, I found him, he was eating.
The same guy who's supposed to be fasting with the rest of you.
Yes, there's a corporate fast he had told us. So I was so shocked. I'm going there and I'm being asked whether I'll take tea and biscuits. So I'm wondering,
He's preaching water and eating biscuits.
Yeah. Actually, that is how to put it, because I would look at his entourage. The entourage is the team that always come behind him. They are they are very healthy, while the rest of us are very lean. We are actually dying. We are actually...
You know, you can say it. They were chubby because they've been eating, and you guys have been starving yourselves.
Yes. Actually, they've been eating our offerings. They have been using... And actually, one thing with those kind of pastors, they're very scandalous. Because at the end of the day, when I wanted to leave church, is when I heard the story that this pastor used to pay rent for the side chicks. And actually, one side chick came and told me, Melody, I ate your tithe. I ate your tithe.
What?
So, by the time all that is happening, you know, that's when I came to realize, oh, by the way, this pastor was very scandalous. So we are actually being put to do measures and go to, you know, levels where even the pastor themselves
because,
they can't reach those levels.
They're conmen, Melody, because they're conmen. And I'll come back to you then. We will continue, you know, we'll expand a little bit about what you went through. Now, I want to, because we're here talking about pastor, church, you know, we're talking about religious names. I want to talk to a woman of the cloth. Now, Reverend Lydia Kahiga. Growing up, I think there were about maybe 5 or so mainstream churches. Do you guys, the people who are about my age, you know, there were, I think it was PCA, Catholic. There was Catholic, so you could actually count. You could actually know it's either you're, you know, Protestant, Catholic, whatever, they were there. And some of the things when the reports were coming out in regards to the unfortunate incident is it was alleged that this how do we call them? The splinter churches are the breeding ground of these pseudo messiahs, the self-anointed miracle workers, etc. As a reverend, what can you attribute to the upsurge of all these churches? Because when they were being closed, I think right now there were 480 that were closed in Webuye. There were another 360 that were closed in somewhere else. Please, what can you attribute to the rise in all of these other churches?
Okay, thank you, Ashiko. My name is Lydia Mudhoni Kahiga. I serve in Presbyterian Church, in short PCA. It is it's range in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, and I'm in Kiambu. I'm serving in Kiambu, in a county, sub-county called Githuguri, and presbytery called Githuguri, in a place called Karuthi. And I would want to say that one of the greatest thing we must look at is that the breakup of society. We are no longer the close-knit society that we used to be. Somebody goes to a place, maybe somebody comes to Nairobi from wherever it is that we've come from, our villages, and you start living your life. The breakup of that family knit together unit is one of the reasons why somebody feels that I have problems, I have needs, I will get my own solutions. So, and when I come, if you look, you're talking about the mainstream churches, and I know you know, and a few other people who are probably around our age or older, know that church used to be a family thing.
Yes,
we used to go to church as a family. We are all in the same family. Now it's not like that anymore. So that with that breakage of that, there comes in, the other thing is that there is an awakening, a revival, an awakening of spiritual awareness. And with that spiritual awareness, everybody wants now to have their own spiritual experience. And because of the individualistic nature of society now, I go looking for my own church. And when I go looking for my own church,
you open one.
Yes, you open one and start talking, and nobody will ask you. When you go looking for your own church, or you will not have somebody ask you, why are you going to a certain church? How comes you're not in ACK? How come you're not in Methodist? How come you're not in Baptist? Because now everybody will say, I have my life. I want to go to my own church. And now with that, the fact of the awakening, even where God is, there is also Satan, and there are other people who have nothing to do with God, nothing to do with Satan. They're just making money. Yes. Melody was saying here about the money-making machines, whereby somebody knows that we all want something. So he gives us what we want to hear. The other issue is that we all want to get quickly, we want to get rich quickly. That's a big problem in the society today. So even when you know that the kind of outfit the church I am going to does not preach doctrines that are close-knit and good, you still go on because they're promising you heaven. They will tell you, they will give you cars and the things you don't have about this life. You go to them, even when you know very well. Melody saying about the scandals of the pastor. Yeah. You can hear the scandals, but you're like, he promised me to give me, to get me to the next level. Look at sometimes the kind of things that are happening. So we only think about churches, but think about even the wash. Other kind of things that are happening people are going to get rich quickly. And finally, there is the issue of regulation. I think that churches should self-regulate. Before even we go to the government, every person, there should be a downline whereby you say that everybody who is starting a church, they should have at least the basic teaching of theology. They should have a certificate. That one will teach you, because theology does not teach you how to work with God. It teaches you how to work with people, the people of God. Because I will not be preaching to spirits. I'll be preaching to human beings. So I should be able to have a theological understanding of how to deal with God's people. So before even we get regulated by the government and other bodies, there should be a self-regulation. There are a few bodies in the society. Maybe we have the NCCK that is known. We have the Evangelical Alliance of Kenya. But there should be something that whereby everybody should, everyone who starts a church,
something should be a benchmark.
Should belong to a certain body. So that if we hear somebody is not preaching the right gospel, Ashiko,
you can question them.
The government that license them or give them to go ahead should be asked, how did you, why don't you go and ask this person?
Thank you so much, Reverend Kahiga. And you've really put it well, because I remember about theological schools. And most of the pastors and, of course, the members of the clergy, these were people who actually went through the school. We would hear of graduations, we would hear of, and lately you don't hear about that, you know, because I'm sure you also attended theology school, So it was something you would believe if someone has put aside, is it 6 years or what is the duration?
It can go from 3 to
Yeah.
5,
Yeah.
depending on how high.
Yeah, so if someone has committed 3 to
3
5
years.
years, you know, in a particular, just the same way the skill set we talk about when you're going to school, you know, if you want to become a doctor or a lawyer, etc., then that is somebody who is serious about this. But you did mention something very key. Of course, there's a self-regulatory as the church, but of course there's the machinery that overlooks all of us, the people who can tell us what to do. And that's where you come in, Zara. In the aftermath of the Shakahola massacre, many people questioned how such a disaster escaped the eye and the surveillance of an entire state machinery. What's your take on this?
Our president, His Excellency, he has set up a commission of inquiry to investigate why the person in question, Mr. Paul Mackenzie, the pastor, why he was arrested and eventually released in 2017,
Yes.
subsequently in 2019. What exactly has he been preaching to his followers to not even coerce, to convince them to suicide, basically, and what has transpired, basically, in Shakahola. There are very many state agencies involved in the registration, of course, of churches, in the regulation. There are very many state agencies, let's say even the police.
Yes.
Yeah, so right now we are just in the process of inquiry. Once we have a full report on what has happened, then we can go public with how it overpassed the government. Yeah.
Melody, since your unfortunate experience, what are some of the lessons that you have learned in your journey of faith? You know, you had to endure a lot of loss, both from people you loved, you know, the isolation, even finances and assets. What are some of the things that you have learned? Because right now you're thriving, you're definitely not there anymore.
Yes.
You know, so if somebody is at home watching and maybe they've just been rescued from, you know, from the clutches of death, and maybe they were somewhere in Kilifi and they're trying to figure out, how do I get my life back together? What are some of the lessons that you would like to, you know, share?
What I would say is, number one, what made me actually fall as be a victim was because I was a gullible Christian. Yes. A gullible Christian is defined as someone who is willing to believe anything just to get whatever they need. So even if you're told to jump 50 times to get that husband or to get a baby or to get prosperity, you'll do exactly that. So gullible Christians are not knowledgeable Christians. They are actually very illiterate when it comes to the Bible knowledge. So number one, I learned not to be a gullible Christian. So I told myself, I have to know God by myself. I have to know God by myself. Because actually when I was looking at the false doctrine and the false teachings, you know, side to side with the sound doctrine, which are the Bible truths, yes. I actually blame myself. I was actually very wrong to actually believe anything. So I decided, number one, I have to know God by myself because the truths are here.
Yeah.
And the guides are very open, because once you see a pastor who uses the Bible for reference, they're not actually preaching the Bible, because that's what actually happens. These pastors, they don't use the Bible, they don't teach from the Bible, they only refer to it. So once you see that kind of church, you just run away from it. Then Ashiko, one thing we need to know is Jesus Christ left an assignment of discipleship to the church. Discipleship means teaching and learning. So what we find on ground is the pastors nowadays, they are not teaching us about Christ, because a good church today should teach you about Christ, and it should give you like unconditional commitment to the word of God, to the ways of God, to the will of God. And what we have on ground, we don't have pastors who are dedicating themselves to ensure that they have something called progressive knowledge in Christ. So it's always about, you come, give tithe. If you don't give tithe, your life will be tight. But if I'm in cohabitation, because I was in cohabitation, I was living in sin, it's not a problem to the pastor.
Yeah.
So my morality will not be questioned as long as I'm bringing money to the table.
As long as you're bringing. So you're saying some of the key things that you can actually be able to pick out, and I think it goes and it cuts across even the whole panel about being knowledgeable.
Yes.
So that you can stop being gullible. We've talked about faith being the language of the heart.
Yeah.
Especially us women.
Yes.
As women, we like to believe, we follow our hearts. So, and we are mothers and we are nurturers. So if someone is coming and they're telling you, oh, your children are going to perform well, they will, you'll fall in hook, line, sinker. But of course, having the knowledge in the back of your mind is definitely going to give you the power to discern. Before we go on break, I want to ask you something, Reverend Kahiga. What are some of the key indicators that the public should look out for so that they do not fall prey to what Melody experienced? Gullibility aside.
Yeah, thank you, Ashiko. I would want to say that one of the greatest things to check out is when a man stands as the only authority, or a woman for that matter, as the only one and only authority in that church. He says, I'm the only one who's been spoken to by God, and nobody else can hear what I am hearing. And that fact that he is the only person who actually has the voice of God is a red flag.
Is a red flag. So
Yes.
that's red flag number one.
So the other thing is when somebody teaches you to get away from your family. You see, the social fabric that we've been have as a family hold us together. Why should somebody want you to fall? You are all alone. So when you are all alone, you are being isolated so that everybody around you is being told our wengine, they are your enemies. You have only the church as you are to go to. You have no friend, you have no family. You'll be told your families are your enemies. Something is wrong. There is also the issue of doomsday teachings.
Yes. Yes.
Like the Shakahola, the Paul Mackenzie, he had actually said that the world was ending in 14th April, if I'm not wrong, this year.
Oh,
so,
this year.
Yeah, so you see, there's that doomsday teaching, whereby you're told it is now, we are going to heaven. However, we're going to heaven, we don't go to heaven with the things of this world, so sell or do something else. There's always some doomsday teaching that is telling you it's either you do this or you don't go to heaven. And there's also the issue of fear.
Yeah.
When it's not trust, church should be about trust and love and telling you that, bringing hope. But when somebody tells you, like I'm listening to Mel saying that the pastor says, I'm the one who has your voice. That
Yeah,
if you
your
don't
destiny in my mouth.
It's in what, that's selling fear.
Yeah.
So that if you don't speak into my destiny, then I'm dead.
Yeah.
So that fear, why are you selling fear? Jesus never sold fear.
Of course.
So why should somebody sell fear? And there is also the extra biblicals. They work with the Bible, but they are teaching other things that are not biblical.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I hope everybody has been able to note. I think those are about 5 of them. There's the doomsday, and I think you will share with us that information, and we will share on all our social media pages, so that if you're sitting there and you're having question marks about perhaps the church or the service that you attend, maybe you can cross-reference with what Reverend Wahiga has said, and we can look into that. So we are going to take a very small break, and then we'll come back for the question and answer session. Don't go far away.
The government is supposed to regulate the churches. In fact, they're supposed to go into deep activities of the churches, what their religious document says about how they're supposed to run their churches, because each and every church has got certain given document over which they're supposed to operate on, and then they're supposed to know that this church is under which document and how far have they gone as per what is needed, because by the end of the day you realize that they violate the right of human being, like women, the way you've put it.
Welcome back to the second part of Dadas show, which is the question and answer session. I like this part because it gives our audience an opportunity to interact with our wonderful panel. And of course, even you at home, you get the opportunity to also interact with us by sharing your thoughts, your feedback, your questions on all our social media platforms at KBC Channel 1. You can also reach me directly at Ashiko, the host, across all social media platforms. So to start us off on this question and answer session, let us begin with Mr. Jackson.
So my question goes to the pastor. Why is it religious dramas are mostly associated with women in the society?
Jackson, that's an excellent question. And being the Dadas show, we would genuinely want to know. Because the reality is most of this, what did you call them? Religious dramas. They do happen, around women. So how can you explain that?
Thank you. Thank you for that question, Jackson, and thank you, Ashiko. I would want to say that matters of faith are always geared towards emotions and matters of the heart. You talked about the matters of the heart. Whenever you talk about matters of faith, you talk about matters of the heart. And women are known that their side, their emotional side, their emotive side has more weight. Even when you bring a show, it's not even about a religion. If you have a show of a soap opera, most of the people will be there will be women, and they will be crying, and they don't even know these people. So that emotion, the fact that women are emotional, it means that whenever something new comes in the society that is talking towards about emotions and about faith and about matters of the heart, women will believe. And it is not just the dramas only, the religious dramas, even in churches. 80% of our members are women.
Yes.
And it is not that there are no men in the society. It is only that women are more susceptible towards hearing and believing. They believe everything. Melody talked about gullibility, being gullible. It means that women believe everything before even they interrogate it. Men will interrogate something before, and that's the way it is because they're more logical than emotional. But women are more emotional than logical. So the women who do not interrogate something, they first enter in and then they find what has happened. Oops, something is wrong. Men will interrogate it.
Okay.
So that's why we find that most of the people in these chaotic dramas are women.
Yeah. Well, that's rather unfortunate. But like Pastor said, it is in our genetic makeup. It is our sociology, our psychology, the side of our brain that it feels emotion, and logic. So I think now that we know that, knowledge is power. Now that we know that, we will try our best to catch ourselves before we find ourselves, oh, am I being gullible? Is somebody manipulating me? Is somebody taking advantage of my good nature? Is somebody appealing to a need that I have? Because especially that is what some of these, fake, messiahs, like they talk about your children will be successful and in your heart you feel, my babies need to be successful. So I think the idea is like as you're enriching yourself with the knowledge, also, be wary, be discerning. Is this person taking advantage of me as a woman? So we will move on. Thank you so much, Reverend. We will move on to the next question. The next question is from Natalia.
My question goes to Zara, where I'd like to ask, what are the ground closure for these churches referred to as fake churches?
Thank you, Natalia, for that question. When we say closure, I'd like to go with the term cancellation.
Yes.
Why we cancel these churches. Now, according to our legislation, there are various reasons why we cancel the churches. The first one being, whatever it is they're operating is inconsistent with the written law of this country. Shakahola Church, rather Good News International Church, its practices are inconsistent with written law. That is the main ground for cancellation. Furthermore, there are some cancellations that are going on. This is because these churches have failed to file their annual returns as per written law, as per our act. Yeah, this is what is called a witch hunt, what they're saying, oh, the Registrar of Societies is on a witch hunt. That's not correct. The law is the law. If you're not practicing the law, you are illegal. An illegal society is bound for cancellation.
I like that. I mean, I like what you've very well put it. The law is the law. And I feel before people start crying witch hunt, they need to review. They need to review. They need to go through the Constitution. Even get some knowledge. Call the Registrar of Societies office. Ask what qualifies. You know, what qualifies a society? What qualifies a church? And then what are the grounds that causes, you know, that lead to the cancellation before you start crying wolf? Of course, thank you so much, Zara. That's really well put. And then our next question is from Abigail.
My question goes to Melody. So what was the last blow that made you quit the church?
That's an excellent question. You know, what is the final blow? What is the straw that broke the camel's back? And also, while you tell us about the final blow, kindly tell us what advice you'd give somebody who is out there, who is just about to get the final blow. What advice would you give to them, please?
Okay, thank you, Natalie, for your question. For me, the last blow was when I realized that I had heeded to every instruction. I had given all the Isaacs. My enemies, purported enemies, had died, and yet there was no change. So the advice, Ashiko, I will give to people outside there is, number one, they have to get a good church. Because for me, the turnaround was when I got a good church, I was able to get now the Cry of the Spirit Ministries, ministering under God with Apostle Takim. We have a channel called Morning Cloud TV and YouTube channel Present Rule for Present Times. So once I was able to sit down as a disciple and learn about Christ, I was now able to get more light on how a false doctrine looks like. So once I was able to identify that, oh, a false doctrine, you'll find the man of God is manipulative, it's working as a money-making machine. You have all this false doctrine, and we have false teachings which are going around. Things that when you even look biblically, they're things that even our spiritual fathers, they never did them. So once light was shed, I was now able to identify, oh, so this is how false churches look like. Yes, so that's why immediately I even saw Shakahola, I could be immediately able to identify. So once I saw that, then I was able to boldly come out, because we were actually put under fear, we were isolated, but when I heard there is truth outside there, and I was able to know, oh, so your destiny is not in my mouth, and that, you know, there is no amount of money I can give God for my life to be turned around, because the ultimate sacrifice of Jesus Christ dying on the cross had already been done.
Yes.
Once the revelatory truth came in, and I was also able to know God for myself and follow Christ consistently by myself, you know, at that point now, I was able to break out from being a captive. Because I actually was a captive. Yes, so that's how I was able to break out.
Yeah, so the advice that you would give to somebody who's watching you right now, you know, we've already seen the final straw. What would you tell someone who's watching you when they're looking at you and you look like you're in good spirits, and they're trying to figure out, you know, just give them some advice to encourage them on their journey?
I will actually tell them that we are in the end times, that they should be able to identify false doctrine and false teachers and run away, because false doctrine kills. I was on my way to death, so we have to actually run away, and they should be very careful who they call man of God. They should be careful who they call church, and they should be very careful what they call a miracle.
Okay.
They should actually go through the checks and balances, do a very screening. They should actually do a very close screening, and once everything is watertight, now they can go. And don't be gullible. Don't be willing to believe anything just to get what you want. Sit down, question, use your intelligence. Read the Bible for yourself. Read the Bible for yourself. So once you do that and get a good church, then I believe you'll be set free as a captive. Oh,
that's fantastic. I want Reverend to add a little bit on that, you know. What advice would you give people out there? Someone who maybe has found themselves in the clutches or is under the influence, and they so happen to stumble onto this show. What advice would you give them briefly?
Okay, thank you, Ashiko. The best thing I would tell people is that listen to your heart. God never leaves your revelation in somebody else's hands. God is not unfair. That if he wants you to go to heaven, he doesn't leave it in somebody else's hand. Even when we are preaching, we don't tell people you have to, all of you to get saved. We leave it to each and every person to make their own decision. So listen to your heart. Your heart will tell you. Red flags and red lights will show the moment you are in the wrong place. Don't rationalize things, say that things are going to get better. Listen to your heart. And also, look at the Bible says that you will know the servants by their fruits. If you hear things that are not going right and you have seen them not going right in the church that you are in, like for example, if somebody is saying you're fasting, they're not leading from the front. Them they are eating, and then all of this, people are dying. It means that they're not leading from the front. A shepherd should, a godly shepherd should lead from the front. Yes, so I should have the right, I should speak the right doctrines and do them. I should have those things in me. And so you listen to your heart and then you follow the right doctrines. And also check somebody who is teaching the Bible. A church should be relational. It should be about love and trust. You should see the way Jesus used to walk with people. If a church is not teaching relational, if a church is teaching fear, if a church is talking threats, that is not the right church. Yeah,
I agree. Thank you so much for those words of wisdom, Reverend. And I believe whoever is sitting down, then we've gotten enough knowledge today that can make you maybe perhaps start asking a question or two in regards to where you have found yourself in your religious journey. So our final question of the day is comes from Millicent.
Thank you very much for this opportunity you have given me. Let me ask this question, and I'd rather refer it to the society that we are living, the African society, where we are taught to fear the men of the cloth. You are in a position where you are seeing a man of God who is not giving the right doctrine. Where do you report such cases, considering the fear that has been fed on us about men of God?
Thank you, Millicent, for that question. This should be public knowledge. If you see something wrong and you don't report it, it continues. The correct platform first to report something like that is the police. That specific query can also be brought to the Office of the Registrar of Societies. The first thing we'll do is suspend the registration pending investigations. Once investigations are finished, we cancel the registration of that particular church, and we let the law handle the men in cloth, or rather the fake men in cloth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So I think that's even information that we should share with you, and we'll share with you on all our social media platforms. So in the event that you notice something that is unnerving, and you know that, because we honestly do not want to see a repeat of what took place in Shakahola. Was it that people did not know? So to avoid a repeat of the same, if you do notice anything that is going on that looks unchristian-like, it could be someone is being taken advantage of, the assets are being used. It could be someone who's been taken advantage of through sexual abuse by people who are purporting to be men of God. So kindly reach out to your closest police station, and if you do not get a response from there, come directly to the Registrar of Societies, which is under the AG's office. So please do not sit and witness as a crime is taking place. So we have come to the end of our very, very interactive and informative and insightful episode of today's show. Now, my take on this whole conversation is that religion is meant to bring people together. Religion facilitates communion and a relationship between man and God. It's supposed to preach fullness and hope in spite, even in the face of all sorts of adversities. So if the religion that you conform to is acting like a vehicle of death, then it's about time that you start asking yourself questions. Rethink your choices. Rethink what you understand as faith, because the price that we are paying in the name of faith is a little bit too high. So remember, you can always reach us on all our social media platforms at KBC Channel 1 across all the platforms. You can also reach me on my personal page at Ashiko the Host, be it on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter. I will be open to answering any and all of your questions in regards to this topic and any other topic we've had on the show before. So on behalf of my production team at KBC, my wonderful location partners, Best Western Hotel, Upper Hill, and myself, Ashiko Mbune, I thank you all for tuning in to this week's episode, and I will catch you same time, same place next week. Bye-bye.